Today is the 1st of March. March the 1st. Friday. 2019. I have something that I want to say to my viewers in regard to me unplugging and deleting my data platform from all the people that I've been sending data to for the past couple of years. I'm so heartbroken and stricken by all this. I don't really even know where to begin other than to show you a sequence on the news channel, and then I'll get back in what I really want to say to you.
I did speak to him. He felt very badly. He knew the case very well, but he knew it later. And some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you?
But he tells me that he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word.
That was President Trump defending North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, saying Kim did not know what happened to Otto Warmbier. Now, Warmbier was, of course, the 22-year-old from Ohio who was sentenced to North Korea and suffered horrific treatment while he was detained for 17 months. Warmbier died shortly after his return to the United States. Warmbier's parents released this statement today, quote, "We have been respectful during this summit process. Now we must speak out. Kim and his evil regime are responsible for the death of our son Otto. Kim and his evil regime are responsible for unimaginable cruelty and inhumanity. No excuses or lavish praise can change that." Just moments ago, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway repeated the president's talking points on the North Korean leader. Take a listen.
The president agrees with the Warmbier family and holds North Korea responsible for Otto Warmbier's death. He's said that time and again. But the president is talking about that Chairman Kim did not know what happened to Otto at the time of when it happened. And so, of course, he holds North Korea responsible.
Joining me now is Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland. Senator, thank you for being here today. Let me have you weigh in. You've met with the Warmbier family. Is it possible that Kim Jong-un didn't know about the treatment of Otto Warmbier?
No, it's not possible. Kim Jong-un knows everything that happens in his country, certainly with respect to an American who's been held prisoner there. And Kellyanne Conway, this is the cleanup brigade once again, trying to clean up after the president.
Did she clean it up, though? Did she clarify anything for you?
No, because it was very clear what the president said. It was a despicable comment. He has said that he's got this love affair with Kim Jong-un, who's a brutal dictator, who's responsible for the death of Otto Warmbier. I have met with Otto Warmbier's parents. They're incredible people. They're trying to get justice for their son. And when they see the president of the United States, first of all, cozy up to this North Korean dictator and then say that the president believes that dictator over what we all know happened, it's a really low moment for the country.
Does the president need to come out and publicly walk back his statements in your estimation and frankly say I was wrong?
Absolutely. I mean, the president needs to say loud and clear that North Korea, the regime, and Kim Jong-un was responsible for the death of Otto Warmbier. You know, the president had the Warmbiers for one of his early State of the Union addresses. How it is that he's now come under the spell of this dictator is a question for all of us. It seems to be a pattern, right? We saw this with MBS, who murdered an American-based journalist. We saw it, of course, in the case of Vladimir Putin, where he threw our intelligence agencies under the bus. It's a pattern with this president.
Well, let me follow up with you on that. What do you make of that? Because you're right. I mean, when you heard his comments, it reminded me immediately of what we heard when he was standing next to Vladimir Putin. He said he didn't meddle in the election. I take his word. He then came back and walked that back. But why do you think the president does this? Is it diplomatic strategy, or what do you think is behind those comments?
He has this sort of attraction to folks who have all these powers. I mean, clearly, Donald Trump wishes that he could wield, power like a lot of these authoritarian leaders. He's always frustrated by the checks and balances in our system. And so when he sees these dictators, he seems to come under their spell. It is really dangerous for our country with respect to national security. It also, of course, undermines our values around the world.
I want to change topics now and talk about another big issue that you're facing on Capitol Hill, which is how are you going to respond to the president's national emergency? Obviously, a measure passed in the House. You have some Republican senators essentially saying, look, either withdraw the national emergency or we will force you to veto it. You need one more vote, yes, I believe.
Yes.
Do you think you're going to get it? Is it Lamar Alexander? Do you think this passes?
I think we will get the votes to pass this override of the emergency resolution. As you say, we need one more, and there are lots of Republican senators who at least previously had said they would strongly oppose this. Look, we were just talking about sort of authoritarian tendencies, right? This is the President of the United States taking unconstitutional means, declaring an emergency to override an appropriations budget that was passed through the lawful process by Republicans and Democrats alike. So this is the opposite of what Republicans say they stand for, separation of powers, Article 1.
And yet President Trump has been very clear. He reiterated it again last night on Fox News. He said, look, he's going to veto this. This could be his first veto that he signs. Do you have enough votes to override that veto? Do you even think you could come close to overriding it? I mean, I know you don't have the votes right now today as we sit here, but do you have a shot?
It's going to be very tough. I will say this. If you look at the votes that we had to pass the original appropriations bill on the budget, those were veto-proof majorities. And so what the president is doing now is saying, okay, he doesn't like the amount of funding that the Congress provided for the wall. So he's going to use these unconstitutional measures to simply divert money away from what Congress said it should be spent for on a bipartisan basis to some other purpose. A total violation of the U.S. Constitution. I do believe the courts will overturn this, but the Congress should do the right thing. I'd stand up for separation of powers.
Even at the Supreme Court, President says it's going to stand at the Supreme Court, and frankly, when it came to the travel ban, he wasn't wrong.
I know he was not wrong on the travel ban. I think this is such an egregious example of a violation of the Constitution that it will be knocked down. But why drag this process out? It also undermines any kind of trust through the current appropriations bills in Congress, right? If the president can reshuffle the deck right after we reach agreement, that undermines the process.
Let me get your reaction broadly to how Democrats, some of your Democratic colleagues, are responding to what we witnessed on Capitol Hill this week. Michael Cohen, the president's former attorney, personal fixer, lobbing all sorts of accusations, attacks against the president. Now some of your colleagues are saying, look, we have a little bit more fuel when it comes to possibly impeaching this president. Nancy Pelosi has been very clear. We're not even going to look at that question until the Mueller report comes out. Where do you stand this day, on this Friday, after you've listened to Michael Cohen on that issue?
Well, obviously there was a lot of compelling testimony, but I agree with Nancy Pelosi. We should wait until the Mueller report is finished. We should get the results of that report. We should also get the information underlying that report. And, one of the big issues is making sure that this Justice Department will provide Congress with that report. And if it doesn't, as Adam Schiff and others have said, they will subpoena both Mueller as well as the contents of the report and the underlying information.
Senator Van Hollen, great to talk to you.
Good to be with you.
As always,
nice to see you.
Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thank you. And coming up next, heating up. The climate change candidate throws his hat into the 2020 race as Joe Biden catches heat for a comment he made about Vice President Mike Pence. This is Andrea Mitchell Reports, only on MSNBC.
Great news. Liberty.
Reason why I wanted to stop this here is because you can see in the background a picture of the Statue of Liberty right here. This was a gift that was given to us. And I wanted to stop that right there at that particular area. First of all, I want to say to my viewers, those who have prayed for the Windmill Ministries missions, those who support the same endeavors that we support, we are grateful for all of your prayers and anything that you have said in our favor towards the Windmill Ministries missions here at 291 Thompson Road. Because we understand and realize that not everybody is Christians that get a hold of this particular broadcast, this YouTube broadcast. And we also understand that those that do, a lot of people don't truly understand it or believe in it. And I want to bring up some facts. And I guess fact number one that I need to bring up to is that yesterday I basically had a burnout. I didn't know that you could be burnout mentally by seeing so much stuff and hearing so much stuff and reading so much stuff. But I basically had a data, digital, 21st century social media burnout. Especially whenever you have seen and listened to and watched the occurrences that continue to be bombarded by our news on a day-to-day, everyday level of arguing and bickering and people not getting along and people that has been misrepresented and people that has been lied either to or on. It's been an overwhelming experience for me. I guess the nail in the coffin yesterday towards me deleting my files was the ordeal pertaining to Alto. O-T-T-O. I spell Alto, O-U-T-O. I'm sure there's different analogies of spelling it. But whenever I was down in Florida, I got an opportunity of working with an individual, and I think that I have mentioned this before, working with an individual by the name of Alto. He was extremely, extremely talented. He could do anything from A to Z. He was originally from the northern New York area up in the mountains, and he had worked in a Cadillac dealership down towards the Miami area for years before he moved back up into the St. Augustine area. And I had an opportunity of working with this individual and getting to know him and his family. He had a boy that had to go to the deaf and dumb blind, not the deaf and dumb, but the deaf and blind school there in St. Augustine, Florida, pertaining to where Ray Charles learnt some of his quality skills towards surviving. Out of all the places in Florida that I've lived and been and examined and visited, St. Augustine is my favorite place because it touched my heart in not only living on Anastasia Island, but being acquainted with their whole dynamics of what they do and what they stand for there. Whenever our leader buddies up with a dictator, this Northern Korean guy, and sides with him in the degree that this dictator was not aware of the punishment that was being broadly exposed to the media. By him saying that this guy didn't know what was going on is an insult to our intelligence. We have told the President of the United States again and again, and we're going to continue to say this. Those people over there are not to be trusted. Any of them. And why that there is a pattern of a president that has buddied up with MBS. Why that there's been a president, for some strange reason, that has buddied up with President Putin, needs to withdraw his statements and get back in line with the American people, or he needs to resign immediately. This has been such of a heartbreak in me watching this, because I've been micromanaging this, because I realize that the stakes is high. Not just with the American people, but with the world. And as many hours and as many times as I've been to Los Alamos, New Mexico, they're living and being in Santa Fe, New Mexico, going and protesting about nuclear actions and nuclear involvement. It was mind-blowing to watch what went on this week, to the point that I just deleted all my files. I still got them. I still got them on my cloud. I still got them. I can bring them out. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not appreciated here. I'm not admired. I'm not appreciated. If anything, I'm still despised. I'm still mocked. I'm still looked down upon. Why is that? Because the minds of the few have tried to dominate the minds of the many. And that is not where and how our great leader, Ronald Reagan, intended for this country the path to go down. Our path that we were supposed to have went down was supposed to have been a path of leadership to the point of being that city upon the hill that shined 1,000 points of light. And to think that that this sneak attack that has occurred pertaining to this world conspiracy of wanting to destroy the individual that's talking to you right now has turned into nothing more than a poison state of a Trojan horse. Believe it or not, from what I can understand of the Trojan horse, there actually was trickery towards trying to overcome various places in Greek mythology that actually did occur during that time. Similar to our Statue of Liberty, that was a gift from the Queen, from England. It was a gift pertaining to the Statue of Liberty. Has our gift become our Trojan horse to the point that now we have allowed for all these thieves and all these liars to come and dictate and dominate our lives, similar towards being nothing more than tyrants? Whenever I woke up this morning, I was so moved and hurt by all this. One of the first people that I tried to make contact with was a Mr. Ed and Cheryl White by the number of 731-973-5954. As soon as Miss Cheryl identified that it was Juby, the old Juby that they used to know whenever I was only knee-high to a grasshopper, they immediately hung up the phone. Then I made another telephone call to a Roy and Peggy Stone. I never got no answer of the number of 731-643-6644. 6874 that used to operate the store, the Hop-In store down here for years and years and years before Mr. White decided to take it over. Then I tried That's what I got to deal with on a day-to-day. Matter of fact, he's done been by here twice this morning, honking and blowing. And if you'll look here at the home that I live in, which is an RV, the walls here is about 2 inches thick. So naturally, I can hear every sound. It don't matter if it could be a bicycle out there traveling down the road, and I'm going to hear the gravel, the tires hitting the gravel. But that's what I got to put up with. Just total insanity. Total madness. After I got through trying to contact them, then I tried to contact my cousin pertaining to Reba Jordan. That was very, very aware of this calling that I had in regard to getting my message out to the general public by the number of 731-692-3636. I didn't get no answer. Then I tried to contact her father, which would be my uncle, which I guess is basically almost in his 90s now, Billy Jean Jordan, at 731-649-3587. No correspondence. Nobody wants to talk to a madman. They've got me painted as me being the sicko. And I wasn't the sicko. I was the one expressing and explaining to them that I had a message that come from my Heavenly Father, which was supposed to have been their Heavenly Father. But because they thought that I was trying to bamboozle them, they decided to throw me under the bus. There was only one family in this immediate area that I did make a decent exchange with, was pertaining to a Clyde Staggs and Paula Staggs. Their number 731-973-3425, that sat and talked as human beings are supposed to talk to each other for about 45 minutes to an hour, discussing different things, different people, different stores, where this one had moved away or this one had died. Clyde Staggs is a very, very decent man, and I've known him all of my life. I used to hang around his oldest son, Ricky. Then there was a middle-aged son by the name of Randy, and then their youngest daughter by the name of Kim. I hung around these people. They was part of my lives whenever I was growing up as a teenager. They're the only people that has acted decent towards me since I've come back to this area. Basically, all I have gotten is being ignored, or getting what you just heard was total insanity towards aggravating and agitating one's life in this area. Whenever we get to looking at value, everybody and their brother has been taught this false lie about diamonds. Oh, diamonds is this, and diamonds is that, and diamonds is rare, and they use these fancy words that they put on these diamonds of authenticity and glamorous and luxurious and big outstanding words. If the truth of the known be between the diamonds that is taken from the mines of Russian and the mines of Africa, there's probably an over-plenishment of diamonds. But do you think that they're going to spread that information far and wide pertaining to the false information that has been discussed about diamonds? Absolutely not. Another reason why that my heart is so shattered and broken to the point of me deleting my data is because there's so many things about Donald Trump that people actually like, including myself. And whenever he stands up to certain things pertaining to fake news, and he supports our military, and he talks about this and he talks about that, these are all good qualities about our chief and commander that I truly like. But then on the flip side, for some reason, he has problem with PR towards public relations and actually discussing and talking about the things that we know to be true, but he says that are not. He even debates his own counsel, his own administration pertaining to national security. I seen where Congress is finally coming alive to the point of them mandating it, buying guns, that's sprawling it out on a longer level. I don't know what they've done yet about AK-47s and other types of high-powered rifle guns, 40 cal, 50 cal, 60 cal. I don't know what they've done about all that yet, but I can see it, a turning of the Congress in the direction that they need to go. But I still don't see much of a turn whenever it comes to our president. You keep in mind, it was our president that made fun of one of Oklahoma City's congressmen pertaining to Pocahontas. This greed has damaged our people. These lies have damaged our people. You know, it hasn't been too long ago that they thought that gold was the most valuablest quantity on the planet. And that gold was out in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. And that's the reason why Andrew Jackson decided to run all the Indians out, because he wanted the gold, the gold, the gold. Greed. And after he got through almost destroying a whole civilization, come to find out it was fool's gold. It didn't even have the mineral content that real gold has. What done that? Deception. Lies. Greed. That's what done that. To sit up there and to be on TV and to talk about various things that people know are either true or not true, and for a president to dispute those things, he's actually making a mockery of our intelligence. That's the part that I don't like about our chief and commander. Is for some reason he has problems with public relations. For some reason he's on this setting of this mindset towards protecting this one and protecting that one and lying about this one and lying about that one. And it makes me scratch my head. It's like, what has done this? What has caused this? Why would anybody even verbally blurt out such of a thing? I don't know if the testimony this week was accurate or not. I'm sure that we'll find out more pertaining to the involvement of a bad business partner deal that has went wrong. But as far as I am concerned, Mr. Donald Trump needs to withdraw some of the statements that he has made. And if the truth be known, probably the no deal is much greater than the Donald Trump deal, because God only knows what that he would have said or done or promised over there to the Korean Peninsula that would have come back and bitten all of us in the rear end. Just like him defending the MBS Saudi Arabia, I guess you'd call it administration or royalty family. We know that those was the people that caused havoc up onto the American land pertaining to 9/11. Congress knows it. A lot of people know it pertaining to Central Intelligence, pertaining to our national defense. And to think that we have toiled with this and we have played with this to the degree that it has become all of our Trojan horses. If I need to apologize to my viewers, I guess what I need to apologize for is for being human, having a heart of remorse. Just like the school over in St. Augustine pertaining to the deaf and the blind. We have to have humanitarian feelings for each other and for the unfortunate and for those who have not been giving a plate of gold or a silver spoon. We have to have humility towards believing in a loving, wholesome, graceful, forgiving God. But at the same time, we have to understand that there's barriers that we are not supposed to go over, around, or under, pertaining to the righteousness that God intends for us all to abide by. Whenever it comes to people being led to the Lord, being led to the Lord is a recommendation. Being led to the Lord is a suggestion. Being led to the Lord is what I recommend, per se. That's what God tells his precious people upon to the planet. I recommend for you to believe in me. I recommend for you to follow after the teachings of Christ because of me. I recommend this. I recommend that. After one goes to church and he or she accepts the Lord Jesus Christ into their lives, we are to not only be discipled, but we are to teach others to be discipled so that they will go out and disciple others too as well. This is not something that God recommends. This is what God anticipates and expects out of all of us. And I personally feel like that I have done my part in the past 30 years towards exchanging my message out before the people. And it's not that Dennis James Juby Jackson has failed the people by getting the message out the way that I have gotten it out, but rather it's the other way around. It's the people that didn't adhere to the messenger. I'm so sorry that you didn't agree with the message. I'm so sorry that you didn't like the message out of the book of Revelations pertaining to the 4 horsemen that comes out of the 7 seals. There's nothing that I can do about the book that's already been written. I didn't write it. I didn't design it. I didn't manufacture it. That was God and his son Christ. And then you got all them apostles and disciples. And then, of course, you got John the Revelator that was inspired on the island of writing the book of Revelations. I do not believe that I have failed in the mission that God has designed for me to give to the people. I believe that it was the people that has failed the mission. Just like the guy up here in Martin, Tennessee, whenever I stood in front of 5 or 6 police officers the day that they drove all the way to Huntington in 2005 and tried to associate my life towards being some sort of a terrorist of some sort.
I used to have to go in to the auto parts store.
I wasn't expecting that. They, underhandedly, for some reason, I don't know why, it's got to be some sort of personal vendetta, tried to undermine this ministry in destroying the founder of the ministry by saying that I was some sort of a homegrown terrorist. Why would they have done that? What motivated them to have done that? What was the intent in behind them doing that? Was they just a bunch of paranoid schizophrenics? I don't think so. I think it's deeper than that. Some seed has been planted in the Weakley County as well as the Martin, Tennessee authorities to the point that they have purposely tried to attack my Constitution. The Constitution that my father fought for during World War II. The Constitution that I've got uncles and cousins who have went to war in various wars that have fought for. They was trying to destroy not only my Constitution, but my whole purpose in what I was to achieve. And of course, Mr. Moore, up here in Dresden, Tennessee, the judge, he was so hesitant about doing anything, he wasn't going to do nothing. Because he was afraid that he was going to violate all his voters of the people that has put him in that power. While people like me have sat back and struggled and struggled and struggled while we watch people like Mr. Tommy Moore, the judge, rise in power. And like David Moore, that used to be the chief of police in Martin, Tennessee, rise in power. And we've seen other police officers that was associated with that shindig that occurred in 2005 in my life towards trying to promote me as me being a homegrown terrorist. Once more, I was not in a theater. I didn't pull down a lever in the schoolhouse pertaining to putting out false images of there being a fire. But that's exactly the position that my own people wanted to put me in. Just like Mr. Ed White and Cheryl White, that could have intervened in watching a man with a bad sickness raise up his family. They could have intervened. They could have stopped the scars, the emotional and psychological, as well as the physical scars that was placed upon to my older brother, and as well as my younger brother, as well as my mother. But did they? No. These people didn't care about what went on with James Robert Jackson, my father's slaves. And that's all we was in growing up. We was a bunch of slaves. Not only did they not care about the slaves, but they didn't care about James Robert Jackson. They had turned their back on him for whatever reason. Out of fear, maybe. Out of disrespect. Out of something maybe his father or father's done down the road towards holding old grudges. Old blood grudges that they should have let go of years ago. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, in my 57 years of life, and after me being out into the eyes of the ministry for 30 plus years, as you just heard, the idiot that drove by here, the moron, honking his horn, thinking that he's going to push Juby over the edge. Push Juby over the edge. I got to be able to do something to make this guy crack. I got to crack this guy. This guy, for surely to God, he's close to the cliff. If I just keep on, maybe he'll jump off the edge. Provoke provoke. Let's ignore the truth, not only about auto, but about us being $20+ trillion in debt. And the last occurrence that I seen on the news, there has been over 8,000 gun incidences in the past 2 months of the year 2019. We got problems. We got deep, dark, serious problems in this country that go beyond anything that I can ever imagine. And that's the reason why that yesterday evening I decided to do this. Kill it. Cut it off. Still got the data. But I felt like that I wasn't being appreciated. I felt like people was not grateful, regardless whether it be the people here in this area, or the people in Dresden, or the people in Martin, or the people in Kenton, or the people in Sharon, or the people in the surrounding areas. I have yet to get any true correspondence. There may be a few people out there that's been praying for me, and they'll sit there and they'll say, oh yeah, we want peace, we want peace. We just don't want Juby's peace. We don't want to support the Windmill Ministries missions peace. So in reality, they like their rapes. They like their school shootings. They like their divorces. They like being $20 trillion in debt. They like all their jails being full. They like having a chief and commander that gets on there and just basically lies about certain things. There are certain qualities about him that I do like, but there's other qualities about him that I don't. And this is where we as an American citizens are going to have to make a choice of rather not we're going to stay on this same forbidden trail or road that we've been on for the past 30 years because of this world conspiracy that began with Mr. Senior Bush and with the Reagans for some reason didn't expose this properly before the people. We can either stay on this forbidden road that we're on, which is going to cause that much more misery, that much more retribution, that much more flooding, that much more droughting, that much more problems with our systems, or we can stop and start to listen to what the delegated, anointed messenger has to say to the general public about the message. And the message is not just cut and clear pertaining to John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. If that's the only itty bit of data that you can store in your mind to the point that that's as far as you've ever went with the Bible, you're unteachable anyway. You're probably at the point of being retarded or something mentally challenged to the point that you can't comprehend half of the stuff or a third of the stuff or even a fourth of the stuff that I even have been talking to you about for the past 2 years. This deception, this lying, this greed, this type of atmosphere is going to have to stop, because if it doesn't, there's going to be more pain and anguish and hurt and agony that's going to befallen not only the adult society pertaining to the guilty, but also the innocent pertaining to the children and their children's children. And we're already seeing that as far as diseases, divorces, children being born with all kinds of addictions, as far as being hooked on heroin, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's time that the people woke up. Because if you do not wake up, eventually God will do you just like I done you yesterday by taking the little key and flipping it to the side, and all of a sudden all the data that Juby had that he was putting out to all these different agencies and all these different people, boop, went away. And it was as if that I never even existed, unless you was smart enough, in which hopefully you was, that a lot of you out there went over to the right-hand column every time I sent you something and you hit save, 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 or you took the initiative of your own phone and you mash one button and the other button at the same time and you take a face shot and you was recording this information, because information is valuable. And not only do I store my information with my cloud, not only do I store my information on my phone, but I keep up with every fingernail file, SD card, and once it gets full to its capacity, I take it, I put it over here as a library. Because what if a solar flare was to hit? What if some idiot decided to do an experiment with an explosion or a big meteor come out of the sky, and all of a sudden the data that you thought that you had stored in your precious phone all of a sudden went click? And it can happen that quick. If you're not smart enough to program yourself in storing it here, here, and here, have a plan A, B, and C. I done it for a reason, other than me being burnt out. It's sad in where we are in the 21st century in comparison to where we should have been if things would have been handled properly going back to 1980 and 3 and 19 and 80 and 8. And it adds that much more misery, insult to misery, whenever I make a telephone call to individuals, individual 1, individual 2, individual 3, individual 4. Well, they must all feel the same way. They must all. What it is, they're shameful. They're guilty as charged. And rather than own up to the mistake, they avoid it. Out of sight, out of mind. It's kind of like the same way that they done us boys whenever we was being beat on a day-to-day level in the open, in the broad daylight, out before the people. Wasn't just being done in close quarters. Mr. James Robert Jackson, that everybody called Bob or Grizzly, he didn't try to hide his imperfections. He done what he done. It didn't matter if he was in a grocery store. It didn't matter if he was down in a field somewhere hauling hay. It didn't matter if he was planting beans. It didn't matter if he was over at a gas station. If he decided to fly into us and show his you-know-what, that's exactly what he done. My father was sick. That was the way that my father was programmed. My father had walked away from God. My father was being ate up from the inside out pertaining to rage that the devil had placed in his heart and in his soul because he had walked away from God, and my father was blinded. He was deceived. In addition to the disease that he created while being exposed to God only knows what during World War II. Now, the $64,000 question is this. My father's got an excuse. Does the Mackrights have an excuse? Does the Coopers have an excuse? Does the Cobles have an excuse? Does the Morgans have an excuse? Does the Ridgeways have an excuse? Does the Bakers, the Willises, the Whites, the Stones, the Jordans, the Neils, the Moores, do they have an excuse? Do we as a society today have an excuse? At least the people in St. Augustine, Florida, come together and said, we're going to help these people. Though they may be impaired, though they may be deaf, though they may be blind, we're going to give these people a second chance. And we're going to go beyond the perimeters of what is considered normal. And we're going to teach them another way of survival. As far as I am concerned, the very people that I've just mentioned has a sickness that may not be as severe as the deaf, that may not be severe as the blind, but it's still a sickness. And until you look at that sickness as a sickness, towards walking away from God and not being obedient to what God intends for us to do. Just the other day, I was over at Melvin Hill's home because a young girl had rolled off, hit some water, and her car was standing up this way. And I pulled up, I stopped, and it was the young girl's father that was talking to Mr. Melvin, and I'm sure he was probably throwing hints towards Mr. Melvin, if he would, to pull it out. The man done already left. I pulled up there at Mr. Melvin's house. I go, Mr. Melvin, why don't you grab up one of your big old tractors? He's got Caterpillar tractors. He's got tractors that'll pull that car completely in two, if he wanted to. I go, why don't you start up one of your tractors and go out there and pull the thing out of the ditch for him? Oh, no, I ain't going to do that, Dennis. You can't trust nobody in today's society. Really? Is that what we have become as a Christian society, to the point that we're not going to do that in which what God recommended and ordered for us to do? For if you see thy brother thirsty, to give him a drink. If you see this person in need, to do this for him, to offer thy coat and thy cloak also. I said, you know, Mr. Melvin, you could have easily signed a little platform and said, I'm not going to be held responsible if anything gets tore up while I'm trying to pull this car out. We realize you don't have insurance like a tow company or a wrecker company, but there is such thing still supposed to be as the Good Samaritan law. The Christian society's walked away from the Good Samaritan law. And I'm not anticipating for anybody to put their life in danger towards picking up a hitchhiker that you could tell by looking at him or her that they're nothing more than a meth addict, and at any given moment they're liable to go off the deep end and pull a knife on you or a gun. I'm not asking for anybody to endanger their lives. But at the same time, whenever it comes to being wise as serpents but harmless as doves, we have lost favor in being that Good Samaritan that God not only recommends for us to be, but has ordered us to be. And if we are not being that in which what God has ordered us to be, then we're not lining up with the Word of God. You keep in mind, whenever the commandments was given, the commandments don't say, I recommend thou shalt not steal. Those are orders. Those are commandments. There's a difference in a commandment and, well, we're suggesting for you not to kill. Those ain't suggestions of the Ten Commandments. Those are commands. Once you become a born-again Christian, there are certain commands that we're to delegate our lives around. And if we are not delegating our lives around those commands, then you need to stop and analyze. Am I truly a Christian? Is this what Jesus would have done towards the Good Samaritan law? I apologize to my viewers for being human, for being weak, for not being perfect, and I guess for allowing for social media to overwhelm my mind to the point that I done what I done by dilapidating, evaporating, deleting all my data. Like I said, I still got it. Those that want to play a part in my life, they're more than welcome to look up my YouTube channels and go in and look at my library towards what I've stored and what I don't have stored. Depending upon, once more, if you are grateful for the messenger bringing forth the message, even though you don't like or approve of the message. Father, we are in such troubling times right now regarding our nation, regarding our attitude, regarding the stability of our churches, regarding the teachings that you have taught us even way before your Son Jesus come into this world. I pray, God, for my enemies. I pray, God, for the needy, the lonely, the sick, the elderly, those who have not been taught properly. I pray, God, for people like Benny that I just got through talking to, that's a Puerto Rican, that's still working down in St. Augustine, Florida, for Jack Wilson's dealership, of the people that went through such horrible event pertaining to the hurricane that hit his home island. I pray, God, for the savagery, the psychological, physical, emotional savagery that is still going on to this day. I pray, God, that you will enlighten and that you will bring forth a revival towards waking these people up that need to be awakened. I pray, God, for our leaders. And I pray, God, for my sisters and brothers all over the world. And I especially pray a special prayer for your holy people over in Jerusalem, of the situation pertaining to their president of being smeared, that I don't know if the accusations are true or false. I just pray, God, that you, Lord, will bring us together as a body and heal all the nations that only you and you alone can do. I just pray, God, that you will lead us not into temptation, that you will lead us not as the Trojan horse or the Achilles heel, but you will lead us into greener pastures of the promised land, that we will become submissive and that we will do that in which what you not only desire, not only recommend, but what that you have commanded and ordered for us to do. In your gracious Son's name. And I thank thee, God in heaven, for all. And amen. Thanks for listening. Shalom.